Hello, everyone. I'm very excited to be kicking off our next session here. I am joined by the ibex team, Potski Alvarez, President and Country Manager of the Philippines, and Preeti Raina, VP of Operations, Delivery, and Client Services. We are going to be discussing how to build a better agent experience for Gen Z. With Gen Z dominating the economy and the labor force, customer experience leaders really need to prioritize their needs and reimagine the contact center as it is today. So very excited to dive in here. Welcome, Potski and Preeti.
Thank you, Brooke, and thanks for having us today. I'm Potski Alvarez. I've been in the industry for more than 20 years now. I lead a team of 12,000 talented folks over in the Philippines. And again, relevant to the conversation today, average age is about between 22 and 23 years old. I'm joined by my colleague, Preeti.
Hey, Potski, Brooke, thank you for this opportunity and inviting us to the session today. My name is Preeti Raina, VP Operations and Client Services here at ibex, and I lead the teams in the US. Been in the customer experience industry for about 22 years, and happy to share some insights, thoughts with my colleague Potski here today.
Great. So I wanted to kick off our conversation by discussing the modern agent experience. And we've seen a shift in the contact center. Employees are now much more tech savvy, they're purpose-driven and creative, and companies are really working now to better understand these employees and connect with them in a meaningful way. So my question is, what has that demographic shift really meant for customer experience teams? And what are some of the challenges that we're currently seeing with engaging Gen Z agents and ensuring performance results?
I'll start off, Preeti. Thanks for that question, Brooke. I think one of the things that we need to consider is what is that demographic all about, right? It's really not just kind of an age bookended, age period or time frame, but really what they, what are the behaviors and what kind of expectations and needs the new generation has. I'm not pretending to understand all of it, but one thing that I do know is that, if you think about Generation X, right, grew up analog, moved to digital, they're tech dependent, right? We all live our lives, using the technology around us, learning about it and understanding about it. The next generation was a lot more comfortable. But now I think about, Gen Z, and, I call them tech fluent. Essentially, they grew up with all this technology around them, all the ease and immediate use of technology available to them. And I think just understanding that one point leads to, us understanding what kind of shift is actually happening. And we can talk a lot more about that, but I think that's one of the key areas or one of the key things that's different about this generation, and it's really that tech and tool fluency that they have today.
No, I completely agree with you, Potski. And the customer service or the customer experience industry isn't going to go anywhere, right? Even though with all the automation in place, there will be still some human touch involved. So as we think, and as you exactly said, in Philippines, our demographic is what, 22 to 24 years, exactly, our Gen Z. What kind of experience do we provide our agents or associates who are so tech savvy that they in turn are able to provide the same experience to the end customers? So as companies, we need to think at that scale. What we did, Potski, you and me, when we grew through our customer experience journey, it's going to be significantly different than what Gen Z is going to experience. And as a company, as an industry, we owe it to them, actually, because that's what they grew up seeing and observing.
And you're right there, Preeti, right? Their expectations of their experience in the workplace starts from there, right? That tech fluency, but it also encompasses a lot more, right? Even, for example, just with how we hire them, right? The ease and the way we hire them has to fit in those parameters of that tech fluency. Has to be a mobile experience, has to be, that whole user experience, just their first touch with the company. A lot of that's going to be technology enabled. Of course, that doesn't replace the whole face-to-face interaction, right? But or the personal interaction, but all of that needs to be tech enabled. And then flowing from there, right? The way we train them, right, has to be, again, I don't pretend to know all their expectations, but the training has to also be frictionless, right? Gamifying, short experiential training is also what's expected of there's been gamification that's been applied to the training. That's important. That's been received really well. But I think there's a lot more work that needs to be done in order to call that whole agent life cycle as frictionless. So, and we've done a lot of effort and work into making that, a reality today. So
absolutely. I think one of the reasons, why, uh, if I just give specific examples to our own organization, why we are seeing our attention the way it is, and our agent satisfaction or our employee satisfaction the way it is right now. Honestly, credit to all the technology and the tools to equip them being that tech savvy to help the end users and customers. So.
mm-hmm.
I want to go back to something that you mentioned, Potski, this idea of a frictionless agent experience, because we often talk about that in the customer sense. We want frictionless customer experience, but you see that as contingent upon a frictionless agent experience as well. So my question is, what are some of the necessary technology and processes that we need to actually achieve that frictionless agent experience?
I have to reinforce that statement around a frictionless customer experience is contingent on an agent frictionless experience, right? And that's really founded on the thought that if the agent has a great experience at work, right? Ability to go to work rightly, ability to pull up their data, manage their data, look at their data easily, ability to interact, communicate with their supervisors, their managers, ability to just wade through all the vast, administrative stuff in which is present in any company. If you reduce the friction points in all of those, then they can focus on the customer. And that's really the thought around it, right? Customer will feel if a customer service employee is distracted, if they have other things on their mind. And what we've done is try to eliminate all those friction points in the workplace. So from a tools perspective, again, going back to the technology that supports that, right? Each element of your workday, you have to think very deeply about, just looking at, for example, communication, right? How do I communicate if I'm a remote employee, or if I want to talk to a manager or a different manager in another department? How do I do that? If I understand how I'm doing within the workplace, I don't need to wait for an appraisal, 6 months out. I want to know today. How easy is it to bring up all these, all the data that I have today? How is my teammate doing, right? How is my big team doing as well, right? So we've done a few tools, or we've applied tools over the past few years that allows one person to have kind of that big data available to them. And and I think one of the aspects of the tools that we've put in place is also that many of these tools have been created consultatively, meaning we didn't pretend to know what they needed right at the beginning. We've asked them, hey, in order to effectively work and support your customer, what kind of tools do you need, and what should they look, and how are you going to be able to use them? And so that's really, without going into kind of each of the tools, so really kind of the thoughts around each of the tools that we've allowed our teams to use. Preeti, did you want to add anything there?
No, you covered everything. I just want to put one more thing, as all the organizations, they saw a huge shift during COVID, right?
Mhm.
And when you reflect back, what happened 2 years ago, all of a sudden COVID hit, and all of a sudden all these companies and organizations that service an end user or customer now scrambling, right? To say, okay, how do we move our workforce from being on site to now at home environment? And I really believe, we've done studies and we've read studies, the companies that really had those tools and technologies in place for a frictionless agent experience, or a frictionless employee experience, for the matter of fact, did well, but others really had a little bit of a struggle trying to keep up with their employees, trying to communicate with their employees. Right. And I'm really talking about agents that really we depend on to service the end customers. So again, when you think about this whole frictionless experience and what COVID did and how the industries reacted to that, it's just amazing to think, if you were a company which had so many tools and technologies in place to still ensure that seamless, frictionless agent experience, are the companies that really did well, right? I mean, you and I were agents at some point in time, when we started our career journey. The agents don't want to be agents their entire life, right? They want to grow up. And again,
that's true.
Little things like these, enable them to look above and beyond. And what, we are like 2 years into COVID, we are into still some kind of a hybrid environment, yet the pace at which we are learning and growing hasn't ceased, right? So just wanted to add that, Potski.
Yeah, no, and when you think about kind of how Gen Z, looks at what a toxic workplace is, a lot of it is really not just with the work itself, right? Or the amount of work. It's really about how they go about that work, right? Or the things that cause them headaches within, right? The ability to, as simple as knowing what you're earning on a daily basis, right? Or on a weekly basis, getting paid right, to a top place. And so hear about kind of what comprise or what really supports a frictionless environment, and what those are. I think it behooves a company to look at all these friction points, not just the, not just from a, I'm helping this one customer, really all these day-to-day, minute up to work stuff, that really is part of all companies, and solve for them, right? The more you solve for them, the more you remove those friction points, the better the customer is going to feel, even if it's through the limited interactions they have with a customer service employee. They will feel that. And again, the fewer friction points, the better customer experience it's gonna result to.
Absolutely. As goes the saying, if your employees are happy, the employees that touch and talk to these customers every single day, then your customers are going to be happy. So that mindset just goes all along.
So my next question has, a lot to do with what both of you were talking about just now. You mentioned that organizations are going from this kind of transactional approach, and they're now taking on a more transformational agent experience. So what has this pivot look like, both in terms of the contact center as well as customer experience outcomes, and why is it so important right now?
I can start off first, Preeti.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I know we feel strongly about
Yeah.
this with within ibex. There have been, again, not just transactional, Brooke. I call it also traditional, right? And
Mhm.
so from an employee engagement standpoint, that has to have, that there has had an evolution over the years, and from our, we have been very methodical as well, and it is. I'd like to think of it as, again, it's not just about the fun stuff, right? There are companies that focus on kind of facilities, or what can be done within the four corners of the office, but we don't think that way, right? It does empowering them. We talked about tools, we talked about technology, but the methodology, the ibexology around it, goes from there, and goes towards all the way up to
Mhm.
development, and really thinking long term about it, um, becoming future leaders as well, and going from transactional towards a kind of this holistic employee engagement model. It's been a great journey for us, but it has led to us thinking about, for example, what are our folks passionate about? Is it really just the work that they do? They are passionate about that. Is, natural for many of our teammates, but for some it goes beyond that, right? So for example, in order to transition or develop or evolve from just a happy workplace into kind of an engaged workplace, you have to cater to individual passions, and that
Mhm.
may be in the form of engaging with the community around them. And so we've done a lot of that, where the communities that surround our workplaces are actually very much involved, or our employees are very with the communities that surround us. That can be, for example, we've got long-term relationships with schools in the Philippines. Unfortunately, obviously, COVID put a pause to that, but I'm happy to say that's resumed as of last week. And our employees are pretty passionate about that. It's not just about, again, it's not just about the four corners of the office from an engagement standpoint, but really just being engaged outside of the workplace, or with their teammates. Another great example, I think, is special interest groups, right? My passions outside of work involve, let's say, sports,
Mhm.
swimming, diving, um, maybe gaming. And we found communities within our company in order for them to engage with their teammates around that. And that's been very well received, especially with this generation, right? Even though they're remote, they can connect with someone within the company, and engage in, for example, my interest of gaming, right? So again, to your question, Brooke, very much involved from kind of that transactional model, right? Pretty.
Yeah, thanks, Potski. In my perspective, transactional to transformational, right? Transactional to transformational also in my mind says, how have you integrated a little bit of a technology, a little bit of a modernization in
Yeah.
moving every experience, like from a transactional to a transformational? Now, I'll give you my example, right? Many years ago, I was a supervisor at some point in time, right? I think I practically spent 50% of my day working on paper files, right? Updating
Mhm.
records on a piece of paper. All our employee files were paper based. Now you
Yes.
chase an employee to have them put a signature on a coaching on a paper file, right? In my mind, that was all very transactional. In my mind, that took so much time away from what we did day to day that we could have rather spent with our employee in their growth and in their development, right? Now, fast forward to many years later, all this, we have transformed as an organization. This whole industry has transformed. Many have transformed early, sooner than others. I'll just give you an example for ibex, just because obviously we work for ibex right now. It's like we have so many tools and technologies in place that have really taken away any transactional things we were doing maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, to now such a transformation, wherein everything either be a report, either be data, either be looking at somebody's performance just in a click of few buttons, right? Even when it comes to agents, mobile. So it's become so transformational that I don't have to dig in. Like Potski said, he has 12,000 employees in the Philippines. He doesn't have to dig in through 12,000 agent files per se to find a particular employee file. He can just go in the system, which is automated, pull it up. And as a result of that, I think we have empowered our leaders who not only spend maybe Potski, 10% doing these admin tasks, and 90% of their time is really spent in developing their employees. We talk about agent experience. None of the agents want to be agents forever, right? They want to grow like me. They want to grow like Potski in their career journey. And I really think as the companies go more and more transformational, and there's transformation, there is technology, we can equip our leaders and we can equip our employees and our Gen Z agents to be to have a much better path, I would say, in their careers by not spending time where it's not needed to be spent, if that makes sense, Potski. And
absolutely makes sense. I think, it may sound a little bit, simplifying kind of the work that we do ourselves, Preeti, right? So when we think about kind of this, the work that our employees do, right? Our agents help the customer. Our supervisors or managers develop our agents, right? Get them moving towards their goal. And really, Preeti and my job is to take out all the obstacles around that, right? That prevent them from doing the job. Those two very simple. Again, I state it very simply, but those two main tasks that they have to do: help your customer, develop your customer service agent. And for Preeti and myself, everything that distracts away from that, or prevents them from doing that, that's really our job. That's we take them down.
Yes, absolutely. I agree. It's hear both of you talk so broadly and about this holistic journey that the agent has, because I do think that Gen Z, it is not just about the day-to-day, it's about their career, their purpose, and their day-to-day, and really understanding where they are in the company and what their future is. So that's really great to hear you guys both talk about that. My next question has a little bit to do about what you mentioned, Potski, about some participation engagement. And I want to ask you about how that's possible in the remote environment, because I know many organizations are really struggling to create that culture of collaboration. And as a result, they end up encountering performance issues. So how can companies build more organic participation online in the remote environment? And what is the impact of that heightened sense of community? I know you touched a little bit, but any more thoughts you have?
Oh, yeah. I think there are, again, a little bit more thoughtful about, being able to pull your team together. If half of them works remotely, half of them in a site, there are some things that you need to consider. One of which is, for each person that works at home, there needs to be an understanding if they are work at home, not just from a activity standpoint, but also considering, will they be isolated when they're at home? Will they feel that they're not supported when they're at home, for example, or will they not be able to engage and participate in the daily conversations or communications, or to your question, Brooke, participate in engagement activities?
Yeah.
And so the first step is really understanding who has the ability and who is capable and who's willing, and who will thrive in a remote environment. Now, once you've got the right kind of mix of people, right? People who work best, and participate best when they're at the site, and participate best when they're at a work at home environment, then the hybrid model comes in. And the hybrid model that we've developed in ibex is really, a combination of, hey, virtual events that'll cater to pretty much everyone across the organ, and done really, really well with that. Even parties, right? There's a virtual party. We send food to their homes. We send party stuff to their homes, and they can participate online. The other half's at the site, and they all have fun together. So that's an example of kind of that hybrid engagement activity. But also, moving past kind of just the fun stuff, right? There's all communities where you kind of merge them together virtually, where they can communicate, both folks that work in the office and remotely, they actually merge and collaborate, and there's so much technology that they use for that, right? That it looks to be, from a top-down perspective, right? When you look at the output and the participation, it actually looks very seamless, because the interaction is pretty easy. I think, again, going back to my point around Gen Z, they are tech fluent, and to them, the virtual interaction is actually very, very real to a big portion of the folks. Not saying all, but really a big portion of the folks. That is what many are comfortable with. That is how many work best. And so being thoughtful and being, again, my point earlier about being consultative around how these events should be run, is really something that many companies should put more effort into, bro. Hope that answered the question. Preeti, did you want to add anything there?
First of all, let me say I'm jealous of Potski. He works in the Philippines, wherein everybody would break in a song and a dance at any given moment. So be they virtual or be they work on site, there's so much fun, right? And again, I go back to my whole COVID theory here. When COVID happened and we had to move literally 99 or 100% of our workforce home, how did companies get creative, right? And still keeping that fun and engagement and the rhythm alive, right? I personally worked from a call center. I would say 20 years of my career, I used to work from a customer service site, and like now for 2 years, I'm working virtually, but still, I don't think so. We miss a beat, right? The way we engage our people, we didn't. And I'm like amazed, and I'm amazed and kudos. And I'm not only saying for ibex, there are many, many, many companies that have these culture and engagement teams together that are still creating so much fun, within the environment. What we have to remember is we are in a people business, right? We deal with people, we deal with sentiments, we deal with emotions. And what we have to remember as organizations is our agents deal with an end customer who is calling you because they have an issue. They're not calling you because they don't have anything else to do. They are calling you half the time upset, half the time have a question, because they need their questions answered. So it is so important, whether virtual or on-site, how do you keep that fun going? Again, I always say this, our people are not manufacturing units. Taking one call, one chat, one email, one after another, but they are people interacting with people. So as organizations, how do you think broadly to keep those people engaged? That could be we typically publish a fun calendar, and there's something going on every day, and there's something that the agents or employees look forward to every day. We get them on a Zoom session, and even like we are right, virtually, I just feel I'm sitting right next to Potski and Brooke and having this discussion, right? So again, technology has put such a different spin on how we communicate and how we engage. And again, as companies, again, I say virtual or not virtual, just keep that fun going, guys. That little bit of a fun, that little bit of a motivation just helps people move along their day, because all of us are so incredibly busy in what we do, helping our end users and end customers. And I not that I want to say a whole lot over ibex, but I'm really proud to be working for a company that has kept that fun and engagement alive. So Brooke?
Yeah, no, that's so lovely to hear.
Maybe we're sorry, I interrupted.
Oh no, you're fine.
I was going to say maybe Preeti, we're partly Gen Z, so hey Brooke,
yeah, no, that's
I think a great example that I did want to share was when we did the consultation, right, on kind of what rewards and, for example, recognition do people want. One of the things that came up maybe last year was really, hey, is crypto something that we need to consider, right? And one of the fun things that we did was we kind of made these awards recognition, and obviously not everyone was receptive to it, but again, it slides into that tech fluency bucket of, the new generation understands this, they like the concept, they like the idea, and maybe we'll use it a little bit more in the future. So again, just another example of how you would think of, how companies need to think and evolve from the traditional ways of engaging their employees. So
absolutely.
Well, thank you both so much. I so appreciate your insight, and it's so great to hear your perspective on the agent experience, and hearing you say, Preeti, that it's really about the person, it's really about the human experience, not just about the numbers. So I think it's really great to hear what you guys have to say, and I so appreciate you joining us today.
Thank you, Brooke.
Thank you, Brooke, and thank you, CCW, for this opportunity. Absolutely.
Of course, and thank you to our attendees. We also appreciate you joining us, and please continue the conversation on LinkedIn.